Okay, so thanks Russ and John for joining us today at the South Idaho chapter of the Climate Reality Project, which is a group of Idahoans across the state who are just interested and concerned about climate change and how we can help Idaho mitigate and adapt to climate change. So today we have Russ, is it Whedon, and John Nito? Am I pronouncing those correctly? Hopefully.
Russ is, yeah, you got Russ's. Mine's Neto.
Neto, okay.
Yep.
John Neto and Russ Whedon from Idaho Power, and they are going to talk to us today about what Idaho Power is doing to encourage customers to become more energy efficient, and also a little bit about what Idaho Power itself is doing to, as the title says, make a cleaner tomorrow by cleaning today, or have through different policies that the company is enacting. So Russ, I'll hand it over to you, and then if anyone has any questions, we'll have people jumping into the call throughout, and I'll introduce, we can pause and take questions at any time if people have them, and if there's new people joining, we'll just try to absorb them into the conversation as seamlessly as possible. So Russ and John, I'll hand it over to you to kick things off.
Brian, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for letting us have a few minutes of your very busy day. As Brian said, yeah, we both work for Idaho Power, headquartered out of Boise, Idaho. I am a community educator for the company. I get the wonderful pleasure of going out and speaking to all kinds of groups, from adult audiences and school children, civic groups, senior citizen groups. And John is one of our wonderful residential and commercial energy advisors. And I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but I'll punt it over to him here in just a few minutes. What I hope to do for you folks is give you a sort of a high level introduction of Idaho Power, a little bit of our history, and then where we see ourselves going in the future in terms of embracing clean energy and some of the new emerging technologies and what implications they will have for Idaho Power over the next few decades going forward. So very quick history. I don't want to take up a lot of time just with a history lesson here, but if you think about Idaho, we became a state, of course, back in 1890. And the people who settled this land and made Idaho a state, they were the farmers, the ranchers, the silver miners, and then eventually the loggers, and the rail system came through here. But back then, as you know, these valleys that we live in were very dry, and they're still considered a high desert. So those groups of farmers, ranchers, and miners, they decided they saw all these wonderful rivers that we had out here, and they said, let's start building dams. Let's start creating reservoirs, pumping water to fill canals, to fill ditches, so we can begin irrigating. And then somebody had this really bright idea, no pun intended. They said, if you build a dam, you can also drop a turbine and a generator in there and start making electricity. So the very first dam that was built in our territory for Idaho Power was our little Swan Falls plant just south of Boise. If you go out of the little town of Kuna, follow the highway to the river, you see our little Swan Falls Dam, built in the very early 1900s, 1901 to 1905, somewhere in that range. And then, of course, over the years, those same groups, as they started to add up, started building more dams on the Snake River. Now, there are other dams on other rivers that belong to other utilities, other agencies, but ours are primarily on the lower or the upper Snake and its tributaries. I'll show you a map here in just a second. By the way, that's one of our line crews installing poles just a few days ago. So that's how far we've advanced in the last century. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, we're very proud to have served our communities the last 106 years. We actually became a formal corporation back in the year 1916. And that photo right there is the corner of downtown Boise at the corner of 12th and Main. And you can see some of the old iconic features, the iconic Idaho Hotel, the Owyhee Plaza, and a few historical buildings that are still standing today. And of course, the trolley system that used to be there, and some of us wish it was still back. But at that particular time, Idaho Power, when it opened its doors for the first time, had 18,000 customers, which if you think about, if you're a small business owner, if you can have instant customers, that's a really good thing. But who were those people? Well, they were the same people who built the company. They were the farmers, ranchers, miners, loggers who were building the dams. They were also the first users of the electricity. Jumping to present day, same corner, 12th and Main, as of today. Looks a little different, of course, but as you see, we still have the Idaho, the Owyhee, and a few other historical buildings. So let's jump forward here. 2022, Idaho Power now has a little over 601,000 customers, and that's across all customer classes. So that's, of course, our residential customers, which is our largest class, of course, residential or commercial, small and large commercial. We have industrial customers, and one of our largest, if not our largest, is Micron. And then, of course, Hewlett Packard, the cheese factories, sugar beet factories. And then finally, our all important ag customers, thousands of farmers and ranchers out there that need lots and lots of water. So to the right there, you see the long list of the 17 dams. Some of you may recognize some of the names from Hell's Canyon, CJ Strike, Swan Falls, of course, Shoshone Falls, because some of them are very well known for their recreational opportunities. But having said that, later, of course, in our history, going into the 1970s and 80s, we realized that, or they realized that they could no longer produce everybody's electricity moving into our territory with just water. So they started using other resources. They built 3 coal plants, and eventually in the 90s and early 2000s, 3 natural gas plants, and you see them there on the map. Now I say that, but you're probably saying, well, wait a minute, I only see 2 coal plants. Well, there's a reason for that, and I'll give you a little tease, and I'll show you why this little dot that used to be a power plant is no longer there. I'll share that with you too. You also see a little small the salmon diesel plant, just an extra boost of electricity for those folks up there, especially in the wintertime. So this is usually when people start to ask questions like, now, wait a minute, your 3 main generation resources are hydropower, coal, and natural gas. What about all these huge facilities of solar and wind that are taking place? We see them right there in your service territory. What is all of that about? I'm about to get there and share that with you because it is a very ever-growing big part of the picture now. So as you know, all power companies across the United States, we measure and we calculate every year how much of these natural resources that we utilize to generate electricity. So let me take you back a couple of years, 2020, and this also includes a little bit of 2019 as well. But as you can see, close to 42% of our generation of electricity came from hydropower, which is still the foundation of it's the core of our company. And we want to keep it that way, of course, because we know water is by far the cleanest, most renewable, generally the most reliable, and the cheapest way to generate electricity. But you're also seeing, here's our coal, and here's our natural gas that I showed you just a few minutes ago. So what about all these other pieces of the puzzle? Or the pieces of the pie? Wind, solar, geothermal, biomass. Those are the parts of the picture that are really growing rapidly. And here's why. Our federal government, way back in the 1970s, passed a law that said all power companies had to be more renewable, had to bring on more hydro, solar, wind. Well, that law was really kind of early in the stages of the development of these renewable resources. Back then, Idaho Power was in very good shape in terms of complying with the law because we were almost 100% hydro. But eventually the law also caught up with all of us because the law also said if an independent developer of wind, solar, geothermal, biomass, or other renewables, if they come into your territory and they set up a facility, the local power company, including Idaho Power, we have to purchase that power. We're mandated by the federal government. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because again, these are good, clean, reliable, renewable resources. You may also wonder about market purchases of power. This is just the wholesale market. I mean, this is just power companies. Since we connected our transmission lines many years ago, we now have the ability to buy and sell electricity to one another and share it with one another, which in turn, of course, makes the system more reliable. If you think about it, aside from natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes, wildfires, other than that, the system is on 99+% of the time because we get to share our power. So let's flip to this last year. You will see some noticeable differences. Maybe the most alarming is our hydro numbers dropped because, as we were just talking about before we started, the snowpack is low and has been for the last couple of years, which means, and we had no carryover from the year previous. And so the rivers are low, the reservoirs are low, and so hydropower has been a little more difficult to generate. So you may also notice that the market purchases of power increased last year. And it increased mostly because of the heat of the summer. And we all know we were in that heat dome and we were all just at our peak capacity in terms of generation. So we did have to go out onto the market and purchase power to compensate for the deficits of hydro and other things as well. You may see a little good news over here in our coal category. I'm going to get to that in just a second, but that actually was reduced as we went on to other things as well. So all of this being said, this leads us to this very ambitious goal we came out with in 2019. We announced to the public, our customers, our shareholders, the media, whoever wanted to listen. We said by the year 2045, and in the utility business, that's a very short time, but we said we wanted to be 100% clean, providing 100% clean energy by that particular year. Now, of course, the question always happens like this. Well, what does clean energy mean? Well, clean in our business means no carbon emissions, no CO2 emissions that lead to the greenhouse gases that we're all very well aware of. So Idaho Power is essentially saying that by the year 2045, we want to lower our carbon footprint to absolute zero. So I know all of you are saying one particular thing. You're saying we have to get rid of coal, don't we? And we do, and we're in the process of doing so. This power plant, the Boardman power plant in Eastern Oregon, that's the little dot that is no longer there on that particular map that I showed you a few seconds ago. So Idaho Power is partial owners. We're co-owners with other power companies in our 3 plants. This one was co-owned by a company called Portland Gas and Electric. Some of you may be familiar with that. And 2 years ago, we both decided that we would exit that power plant, shut it down. And so when you drive by it on your way to Portland, it is no longer operating. Then our Valmy plant in Nevada, year and a half ago, we shut down one of the 2 units. And the reason we're holding on to that one just a little bit longer is, as you can imagine, the snowpack. I mean, it all comes back to the water levels in the reservoirs. We're holding on to that one just a little bit longer just to compensate for the energy that we will need. And then finally, our Big Jim Bridger plant. Bridger is the largest of the 3, and we are co-owners with a couple of utilities, and we have all decided that by the year 2028-ish, 2027, depending on a lot of different factors, including the weather, that one will also be shut down. So I guess the point is, just in the next 6 to 8 years, in terms of our goal of being 100% clean, the coal plants will be off of our portfolio completely, which in turn leads to this: a 30% reduction in our carbon emissions just since we shut down the Boardman plant. And we forecast that as the other 2 are being shut down, we'll reduce our carbon emissions by another 30-35%. So we're very, very proud of that. So what else is out there on the horizon? Of course, wind and solar. We are purchasing. We have just signed contracts. One of the big ones is a company called Jackpot Holdings or Jackpot Solar, who is going to be, in fact, I think they've already broken ground on a plant a facility being built south of Twin Falls that eventually will provide Idaho Power 120 megawatts of power, renewable, clean solar power. And then, of course, wind is also part of the picture. And one of the benefits of wind for us, as we know from a geographical perspective, there are three good locations for generating wind: close to the ocean, out on the river canyons, and this is the Columbia Gorge, of course. Idaho Power, we take advantage of the Snake River Canyon and the Columbia Gorge because they create a wind tunnel effect, of course, so great potential for wind. And then up on the hilltops, that's why we see so many up on the Columbia Gorge, up on the hilltops there. So we benefit greatly by these 2 resources, and we are purchasing more and more of it all the time. And then finally, and this usually is when people start to say, well, what about storing electricity? Can you actually store electricity? Well, the answer has been no up until recently, but the good news is it is happening. Major manufacturers, including Tesla and many others, are saying, we got to start storing electricity so we can use it when we need it the most. So we're starting to see, in fact, Idaho Power just signed a couple of contracts with storage facilities that will attach them to the solar facilities being built so that we can generate the electricity during the daytime, hold on to it for the evening and late evening, early evening into the evening hours when we need it the most. And this is really going to, I believe, is going to revolutionize our business when we can start storing electricity for hours, who knows, maybe eventually days at a time, and use it at the peak times when we need it the most. Well, I just want to wrap up here real quick and toss it over to John. But are there other things out there on the horizon? Absolutely. In fact, you saw the little pieces of the pie, and one of the little pieces that Idaho Power has already engaged in is geothermal power. We are purchasing about 30 megawatts of power from our Raft River geothermal project down near Malta, and it has been in place for quite a few years. And then the fun one that is really starting to really increase in our territory is biomass energy. And of course, we know biomass is the burning of old organic materials to produce steam, to turn a turbine, to turn a generator. Well, for us, all those great dairy farmers and cattle ranchers down there in the Magic Valley are now selling the cow manure to produce the methane gas to burn for the biomass plants. So all of these are starting to be added to our portfolio as we exit coal and eventually natural gas. Well, finally, we need to make some upgrades to the system, the grid itself. We are part of the Western Interconnect, which means we are connected to 31 other utilities in Canada and the western part of the United States. This is part of that whole market purchase of power. We can purchase power in the summertime from the Southwest, purchase wind power from Wyoming, hydro and wind and solar from the Pacific Northwest. And of course, we are also selling it. But the two big projects that we're very proud of, these new transmission lines that are going in, we're in the planning process of our Boardman to Hemingway project. You can see there 300 miles of 500 kV line that will allow us more capacity for the import and export of power. And again, no coal, no natural gas. It'll be the clean energy, hydro, wind, and solar. And then, of course, on the other side of our grid, the Gateway West program, bringing wind power in from Wyoming, selling hydropower and that sort of thing. So just a really quick recap of where we are sort of globally, if you will, or regionally, and where we're headed. And now I'm going to toss it over to John and let him talk about some of our energy efficiency programs.
Thanks so much, Russ. It's always hard to follow Russ. He's such a pro at these presentations. But thanks everybody for coming out. I'm glad to be reaching out to you. My name again is John Netto. I'm an energy advisor here in the Boise Valley. And so my primary role is to do community and customer outreach for this area. Most of my time, I would say, is spent with energy efficiency and different projects where I'm reaching out to customers in our area and helping them out with questions or concerns or projects like what Russ is talking about, you know. So one of the most common questions and misunderstandings that customers have is where their power is actually going. Heating really, and in the Boise area, it really is a big deal where heating is a large consumer of where your energy is going, whether it's natural gas, propane, or electricity. That's going to be your main consumer. Cooling, air conditioning is a close second, and then water heating as well. I know I love hot showers. I don't know about everybody else, but it's always nice to take a hot shower. But a lot of times I hear customers say, hey, you know, I turn off my TVs, I turn off my lights. Why is my bill so high? Well, those are a large portion of the big overall picture. Go to the next one there, Mr. Russ. So Idaho Power, we have programs available, and this is where a lot of customers kind of scratch their head. They're like, hey, why would you encourage your customers to use less of your product? Well, that's a great question, but in fact, what it is we actually have more of a benefit for each individual customer to use less of the overall pie versus us going out and having to build more generation. So it does benefit all of us. As ratepayers, we see those costs in our rates if generation is needed. So we have these programs available. They are funded by a rider inside our bill called the Energy Efficiency Rider. And they encourage customers and provide financial incentive to be more efficient. That's both residential, commercial, even industrial and agricultural as well. So I highlighted 4 of them that I'm going to kind of just dip into, and we got slides just because I thought they would be fun ones for this group, but not to overshadow the rest of this great offering that we have available. AC Cool Credit, that's part of a larger program window of demand response. That's kind of a popular thing going on throughout our industry right now, where especially during peak times, we peak during the summer, we will actually pay customers to reduce load. In this program for residential, there's actually a controller at your air conditioner that will cycle that air conditioner during those peak times that are forecasted. And we will give you a $5 a month rebate for that, or bill credit that goes to your account. This is something that we've had for a long time. It's a great program. It helps us shave off some of that load curve that we see on those 110 degree days, so that power is there and good and reliable. And we don't have to go to the market and spend more money on the market for that power. The great thing about this program is we've actually extended it to a 4-month offering. Typically it was 3 months prior, starts in June, ends in September. So it's a great one. It's easy for customers, especially residential customers, because there's not really anything you have to do besides sign up. So it's a good option. So the next one is our home energy audits. And I put this one on there because this is becoming more and more and more of a topic, especially people moving into the area or moving to a new home. You might not be completely familiar with your home, and there might be some simple opportunities to make your house more efficient. These audits are a $445 value, and we offer them for electric homes at $99 and $149 for gas heated homes, so natural gas, propane, and other fuel sources. These are a great option. Come in, look at your home. It is a contractor that does it. They come in, they do a blower test. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that. Tests basically the building envelope, checks that, looking at lights, changing lights, looking at HVAC, ducting, different things like that to make your house more efficient. And the savings there can be tremendous depending on the home. And then I wanted to dabble a little bit into some of the income qualified programs that we have, and specifically for manufactured homes, because manufactured homes usually are a lower income customer, but also are typically our highest user as far as electricity per square foot in our area. That has to do with multiple factors. Obviously, insulation is the main one. Secondly, it can be the heating source and the age, because we do see a lot of older manufactured homes. It's a great option for folks. Have someone come out there. It's a contractor, again, will come out. We've seen some pretty astonishing returns as far as the amount of energy that can be saved from these programs. Number one, we see a lot of is loose ductwork and then bad windows and seals. And this program helps out a ton with that. I've even seen leaky hot water lines. And if you've got a leaky hot water line, it's just using up power for that water that's going underneath that manufactured home. So it's a great program. And then this is one of my favorites. We live in the city of trees here in Boise. That's the nickname. We offer a program where we give out shade trees. Now, shade tree is important because these are leaved trees that offer shading during the summer, and then they lose their leaves during the fall, and then that allows for some natural light to come into the home during the winter, which is what you want, versus a pine tree or something of that sort. It's a great program. You sign up on our website, a mailer goes out. There's offering, I think, of 8 trees, 7 or 8 different types of trees. And it's just a really great neighborhood thing. It helps people, especially if you built a new home, maybe get some landscaping in there and get that shade up around the house to help reduce those AC days. Now, the other thing that I really want to talk about is knowing your home. And I kind of hinted at this earlier with those energy audits, but this is something that I hold close to myself personally. I purchased my first home in 2010 and was very excited about it. And then I had to do some work to the home, and I moved in about a month after I purchased it, only to get my first power bill and thought I was going to have to sell it right after I got that first power bill. I had multiple issues. It was a 70s built home. And so I got very, very familiar with my house. Now, one of the tools that I used was the My Account that we have at idahopower.com. This is where you can register your account and you can look at your hourly and daily usage totals. This is such a great thing. And a lot of people overlook this and don't really think about it, where you can actually see what the habits in your home are doing to your electricity bill per hour. You can see. This is fantastic. I was able to really lock in several items in my home, big items that ended up using a lot of power, but I was able to figure out exactly what was causing the issue, get those items repaired, one of which was a heat pump that was not functioning. I got that replaced and repaired, and my bill it cut it down by a third. Now it went down a third of what it was before. That's an extreme situation, but still it shows, what things you're doing in your home and how that does contribute. If you add a hot tub or get rid of a hot tub or change a water heater or get new windows, these are all areas that you can track, and that hourly usage graph right there is a great example of what you'll see. Next would be actually now our new offering where we do have an app that's coming out, and it's out in the App Store. So it's even more convenient. You don't have to go to your desktop or laptop and sign in. You can pull up that app and check it real time, see what's going on in your house. Now, I will give a little caveat. I said real time right there, but it is a 3-day delay for that information to be loaded to our website. But it is just an amazing option for customers to be able to reduce their load and see what habits or items in your home are consuming the most. And then we got the smart thermostats there. I wanted to throw that on there because that's all kind of part of that technology that we're looking at. Smart thermostats are fantastic. There's plenty of apps for those so you can control your HVAC. And again, that was the biggest portion of what your consumption of energy is going to be in your residential home. So then I wanted to bring up the rooftop solar. This is an important slide because we are seeing a lot of people, look into their different options for self-generation. Now, the one thing that I always discuss with customers, and I'm going to throw this out there right away, it's always better first to reduce than to offset. Financially, it's just much more financially, your return's going to be much better if you maybe add some attic insulation or different things. Now, if you are considering it for the number of factors, whether it is strictly environmental or if you're looking for financial situation, I would encourage you to definitely go to our website. There are reports of a number of kind of sneaky characters, I guess would be a fair way of saying that, who maybe are promising a little more than what can be delivered. And we want to ensure our customers, because you're still our customer, that you're getting what you're expecting or told when you're installing these goods. So, misrepresentation is a big one. We do have some people that have said that they're working with Idaho Power. So that's an important one to throw out there. We do not sell door to door. We do not hire or endorse specific or partner with specific solar companies. We do not provide that load information that they may be asking for to one of those companies without a customer request. That needs to come from the customer to make sure that we're protecting the information of our customer. So great resources. Check out our website. There's a lot of third-party links too. So that to me helps kind of even it out to where it's not, the utility saying this is what it is. There's a lot of great resources out there and we have it all on our website. Just checking my time here. So we did talk about, wanting to save money and how we're going to support that as a utility. I threw our top 10 no-cost solutions and our top 10 low-cost solutions on here. Now, these might, to some people, think that, they're no-brainers, but I just wanted to go over those real quick. Obviously, unplug or shut off anything that's not in use. The big one I've been seeing a lot lately is that I've had actually HVAC contractors telling customers to leave their fan on their HVAC system on. They say it circulates the air better and keeps the airflow in the house cooler. That's just not true. And it's actually going to use a lot more power. So keep those switched to auto rather than on. Adjust your thermostats down in the winter and then up in the summer, because the closer you get to that exterior ambient temperature, it's going to make a difference. Use window coverings to keep the heat out in the summer, and during the winter, you want to let some of that heat in if you get some direct sunlight on those windows. Lower temperature settings on water heaters to 120 degrees. That's a good one, because a lot of times those water heaters come way too hot. So if you can get that temperature down a bit, it's going to save the cycles that water heater, electric or gas, has to cycle on. So that's a good one. We see these in the ads right now, all the dishwasher companies that have the pods and stuff. They talk about running full loads in the washers and dryers, and then also in the dishwashers. Really, you only need to wash most items in a washer with cold. That can save a bunch of money, because whites and warm isn't always the best thing. So it's kind of an old school thing, but keep that in mind. Hang clothes outside or use a dryer rack. I actually prefer my jeans to be dried on a dryer rack to give it that nice crisp pressed texture. So I like that. And then consolidating freezers and refrigerators, because we've seen it a million times where multiple freezers, maybe in a garage space or something like that, and they're maybe half full. So if you can consolidate that, it cuts down on the thermal mass, or increases that thermal mass, and cuts down on the air that's in that freezer. That's going to help that thing run a lot better. Next one, use energy saving settings on appliances. Those are built in now. You can just hit a button and it gives you the eco mode or whatever it may be. Then we'll go into the low cost options here. LEDs obviously are kind of the go-to. I would be really surprised if anybody in this group is still replacing bulbs with incandescents, but it does happen. Leaky faucets, that's kind of a given. Nobody wants to hear the drip anyway, so that's nice to get rid of that. The programmable thermostat, that's a great one, and we do actually have an incentive for those, so keep that in mind if you're in our service territory. Weather strip and caulk around doors. I'm actually dealing with this right now. I have a fairly new home, but apparently they didn't put the seal below the door on our front door. So that's something I'm fixing right now, because you can feel that draft when the wind picks up, or even in the hot days. So that's a good one. Pretty easy, low cost, no cost. Plug electronics into power strips. That's kind of an old school one where it's all on one strip. You can just hit the button and it all shuts off. It's pretty nice. Motion sensors for lights. These are kind of becoming standard for a lot of people with exterior lighting. I think it's a great thing. Don't leave those lights on all night. Cuts down on the power. Furnace filters, that's a common one. Make sure those are getting changed at least once a month. Insulate hot water pipes in garages and crawl spaces. Those areas that especially aren't insulated, make sure those pipes are insulated. Otherwise, you're just losing that heat to the exterior. Ceiling fans and box fans, they really help keep a house cool. And one thing Russ and I were kind of going over and wanted to make sure we touched on, because it's in one of our promotions right now, is make sure your ceiling fan is actually operating in the correct direction. There is a correct direction for the summer and the winter. I'm pretty sure most of those do reverse. So I believe it's blowing down during the summer and then blowing up during the winter. Is that right, Russ?
Counterclockwise in the summer, clockwise in the winter.
There we go. And then again, back to the plant trees for shading. It's fantastic. 15% in reduction for your AC load. So that's a great thing. Plus it adds some good aesthetics to the home. I'm getting close on time here, so I'm going to kind of blow through the business portion. But if we have any business owners, I would say residential and commercial, reasons for saving energy, it comes hand in hand, right? It's good for your bottom line, whether it's your monthly bill at home or for your business. Your maintenance costs go down, increases your asset value. We see a lot of people and a lot of, especially property managers who are doing large scale LED change outs, because it creates a value to that building or complex. Employee productivity. You get rid of some of those gross old CFLs, those T12 bulbs. it makes a big difference with customers and employees. We see a lot more productivity, a lot of better shelf look for customers. So it's a lot more comfortable for the customers, for the lighting as well, and the HVAC as well. And then again, the public image, so curb appeal, all those good things that come with that. And then sustainability. That's the other big one that I would throw out there. We're seeing a lot more commercial customers in large corporations that have sustainability goals that they actually post on their website. And so we work hand in hand with those customers on those goals and getting that energy efficiency to where it's meeting those sustainability goals, which is an excellent thing because it benefits us and it benefits them. And then real quick, I wanted to shoot in these energy efficiency programs for commercial can get pretty in depth. I'm going to hit these real quick. New construction, major renovation, that kind of goes hand in hand. Those are all based off percentage above code efficiencies, whether it's lighting, insulation, HVAC efficiency for equipment for that. We incentivize on all those measures if they measure above code requirements. Retrofits, this is kind of our bread and butter. Lighting retrofits are still very, very popular. We do see a lot of CFL still out there, people that need to go to LEDs. And we incentivize on that. Not even just the lighting, but even the control systems that either shut off lights, reduce lights, or, have the full advantage of that new efficiency and newer equipment. And then Flex Peak, and I kind of hinted on this earlier, our AC Cool Credit programs, the residential side for Flex Peak. Flex Peak is the commercial industrial side of it, where we incentivize large businesses on reducing their load in those warm afternoon times during the summer peak. That is a big, big deal to us right now, especially with the growth we're seeing in this valley, in this whole service territory, is if we can shave off some of that load instead of having to find kind of those secondary generation sources like natural gas, this will really help us avoid having to go to those other items. And it's a big deal to us right now as we see this massive growth in this area.
John, thanks for that, and Russ, appreciate the run through on that. A couple of questions that come to mind here. I just wanted to clarify, when you mentioned, John, when you're saying incentivize, does that mean Idaho Power is providing like a credit or a rebate to the customer, either on their bill or maybe a check of some sort? Could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So to clarify what we do, now residential incentives vary. Like for example, we have energy efficiency lighting that we actually partner with local suppliers like Home Depot, Lowe's, some other local suppliers, where we actually buy down the cost of those bulbs. So the incentive comes through that point. Other programs, residential and commercial, we actually will cut them a check. For example, my parents live up in the McCall-Donley area, and they put in a ductless heat system and took out their baseboard heaters. And we actually gave them a $750 incentive to do that because it's a much more efficient equipment.
Awesome. And then Ethan asks if you can talk a little bit about the Green Power program.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So we actually have added to that Green Power. It's I think I'm going to screw up Russ here on the name. It's now the Your Power Your Way. Is that right?
Clean energy your way.
Clean energy your way. That's right. That's right. And that kind of encompasses multiple different offerings that we have. We do have options for green energy certificates for commercial customers. We also have options of partnering for different local offerings on off-site generation and whatnot. That's something that we're working on right now. That program actually just got expanded this year. And so it's something that we've seen as a company that our customers are looking for more options, and we're trying to find the right option for them, and giving them some choices on where their power comes from.
So that would be if the customer would like feel confident that their power is only coming from hydro, Idaho Power is building that feature into its services?
Yeah, so basically you'd have, and I'm gonna go straight to the source here. So the two ways to participate in that would be your flexible option, which is now currently called the green program. And this new program is still waiting to be finalized and approved by the PUC, but the current green power program is the same as the flexible option, where you sign up for as much renewable energy as you'd like, and that's a charge that comes on your monthly bill, and then it matches your exact energy use each month for an extra penny per kilowatt hour, or you can actually buy it in 100 kilowatt hour blocks for an extra $100 or $1 per block. So it's essentially a way of showing the customer, hey, you've invested in that green energy option, and then you're paying for it, but it's part of your bill, and that can go back again to the sustainability. And then the subscription, which is the one that we're working on right now for final approval to round up that whole subscription or offering that we're looking at. That would be you buy a subscription to an energy produced in like a local renewable resource. A great example of this would be like a community solar project. And we've tried to get this going. Community solar is something we've tried in the past, where if we put out a kind of a pilot program in a certain neighborhood, and if we get enough subscriptions, then we would go ahead with that project. We wouldn't use it technically as like a capital campaign, because it's a little bit different than capital campaigns. But that subscription would actually go towards the cost in the infrastructure that was built. So that's the nice one too. So if I'm a residential customer, I could be like, hey, I want to subscribe to one of these projects, put my money in on it, and then that also gives kind of a relief to the customers. Instead of having to invest onto your property, you could purchase something like a community solar project, invest in that, and it really cuts down on the maintenance and kind of on-site care that has to be done when you have something on your personal property, or you may not have the room as well. So that's another one.
Okay.
And then for the business side, like I already talked about the large rec purchases where you can purchase those renewable recs, the flexible option, which is available now, and then subscription. So there's the commercial side does add that rec option there, which is a little bit different than the residential side. But other than that, the other two programs are fairly similar.
Ethan, do you have a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, guys. That was a really interesting talk. I guess my questions are twofold. So from a residential standpoint, seems like not long-term saving.
Sorry, Ethan, you're kind of breaking up there.
Yeah, Ethan, you're breaking up a little too much to understand the question. Maybe if you can send it in the chat.
Yeah, and I saw what happens with the dollars when we spend on it. Is that what you're going to talk about, Ethan? Like when you spend that money, what does that go to?
Oh, well, let's come back to that, John. See if Ethan can get back on. We're all over the state, and so he might be up in Salmon. So,
yeah.
I do have a question though. On the mix of the market purchases, what was that mix? Is it all green? Is it and where do we buy our electricity when we need to go to the market?
You want me to take this one, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very good question. And again, market purchases, these are not mandated. This is just when we need it the most during our peak times, or if the price is right, because it's the wholesale market. And if we can find some cheap hydropower out there on the market that's cheaper than what we're making at the moment, we'll try to purchase it. But yes, Brian, to your question, it is clean. It's renewable stuff. We're purchasing mostly solar from the Southwest. We're purchasing wind from Wyoming. We're purchasing hydro, wind, and even solar from the Pacific Northwest. But having said that, you could even throw in a little bit of nuclear power into that as well, because we know that there are a couple of nuclear plants up in Washington, and some of the minor purchases of our energy is nuclear power. Now, a lot of people are kind of curious about this because they're thinking, well, nuclear power is not clean, right? Well, it is clean. It is considered clean because there are no carbon emissions. So that is also part of the mix as well.
Yeah, for the purposes of our group and the Climate Reality Project, we consider nuclear to be non-carbon clean energy technology. And that's one of the policies of the Climate Reality Project. And then similar to that, when you think about correct me if I'm wrong, but when we go out to purchase more electricity, it means we're not producing enough ourselves. Is it more cost effective to build a new power plant, or when does it become cost effective to build a new power plant than just doing the market purchases year after year?
Such a great question. So let me just distinguish again. We do market purchases, the wholesale purchases, when it is needed, and it's usually the summertime for us because we're summer peaking. But the purchase agreements that we've made, what we call the PURPA agreements that most of us are familiar with, these are mandated. These are purchases of power from the wind and solar developers primarily. We have to buy their energy when they are producing. And so it's a little bit of a different and sometimes confusing thing as to when we choose to purchase power as opposed to when we are mandated to purchase the power.
Okay, that is helpful then. So that 17 or 11% of market purchases is Idaho Power regulation from PURPA requiring you to purchase it?
No, the market purchases, especially last summer, it was a perfect storm of bad circumstances, if you will, because our hydro numbers dropped because of the low snowpack. And then, of course, the temperatures were skyrocketing. We were in that heat dome, 100 degrees for weeks and weeks. So we were, quite honestly, we were forced to go out onto the market and purchase extra power. And it was primarily from the Southwest to compensate for our deficits.
Okay. Ethan, do we have you back? Are you there?
I'm here, but I was just driving through a canyon, and I'm not sure if you can hear me okay now.
You're coming in clear now. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I guess my questions were from a residential standpoint. The advantage of a home solar installation is that you pay an upfront cost, but then after that, your energy generation is free. And so there's a time by which your costs have been neutralized by the energy you generate. But with the green power program, it doesn't seem like that you're just paying extra every month forever and ever and ever. And it seems like Idaho Power, with doing solar installations or renewable installations, is going to reap that benefit, but the customer never does. So is there a way that Idaho Power is going to ultimately bring for the customer by having more renewable installations?
So yeah, and I'll back up a little bit, Ethan, because there is a credit that you do receive when, like, if you're a residential customer and you're participating in that green power program, you do receive a credit on your bill for enrolling in that part of it. So it's not just something where you're paying for it and you're getting, you're paying for it and you're still paying your normal power bill. You do receive, like, especially for the community solar type setups, you do receive a credit based on the generation from that site and the block that you've purchased.
Okay, because I mean, I'm just in I pay for all my energy comes from green power, and I only have noticed, maybe it's there and I'm just not looking at it, but I've only noticed a charge for that green power. I've never seen a credit that reduces the cost. And I'm just curious how the balance is there between the price that you pay versus the cost to Idaho Power to generate that energy.
Yeah, and so help me, I just want to make sure I'm answering the question correctly. So you're saying that like investing in the green power versus putting it on your rooftop, that you're not seeing the credit like a benefit to purchasing that, is that correct?
Correct. I mean, I feel like I'm making a donation every month to Idaho Power to do what they want with the money, with the idea that the electrons I'm using are being added to the grid from a green source, knowing that my electricity is just coming from the main grid. But, it seems like Idaho Power wants to have renewable energy anyway. So I live in a shady neighborhood, so I can't have a solar installation. But if I could have a solar installation, it seems like it would be more cost beneficial to me just to have a solar installation on my roof than to participate in Idaho Power's green power program. Because, at some point in time, I would break even and start having free power.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Now, I would have to look at your bill and kind of go over that to see what the billing situation looks like. I apologize. I'm not super familiar with the credit and how that works with the green power, but you do bring up a good point. But I would say you're exactly right in why we have that program, is because it wouldn't be beneficial to you since you live in a shaded area, or you wouldn't really be able to be a part of that. But I think again, it goes back to that being a part. We have customers that have solar on their homes, and they actually really don't see a financial benefit to that. But I get where you're coming from. I did actually was just looking at this, and it doesn't look like you're correct about the credit. I'm not overly, again, I apologize. I'm not super connected with the credit or how that program works directly. But I'd be glad to look into it a little bit more and understand it so that I can answer any questions that you had.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And my follow-up would be on the commercial side of things as well, because I'm working with our hospital system and our sustainability program. And we've talked with some other sustainability organizations like Micron, which I know is working with community solar with Idaho Power. Same idea. Do they share cost of the construction of the array up front and then share cost reduction as the energy is being generated?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the upfront costs. Again, I'll have to look into that. But I do know that with those like community solar projects, they would receive a credit. I'm pretty sure.
And if I could just throw in there for Ethan as well, the revamping of our green power program into this clean energy your way, we are tailoring it just for individuals through the subscription process. It's going to clarify some of these answers and answer some of the questions a lot of people had in terms of what are my dollars going towards. So hopefully this new revamped version will answer a lot of those questions for you, Ethan.
Anyone else have questions?
I think I have a question.
Go for it.
I know that hydroelectric is the foundation, but the fact that, droughts are going to be more reoccurring, snowpacks are going to be decreasing. I mean, in California right now, they're kind of restricting water. Do you think that will continue to be the majority of where the power comes from, or do you have any options, or are you looking at something for the future?
And to build on Caitlin's question, if we need another power source in Idaho, what would we look to? Would we look to another natural gas plant? Would we look to geothermal? Would we do, a 500 megawatt solar?
Yeah, I think, and I probably should have mentioned this from the top. Every 2 years, Idaho Power comes out with our integrated resource plan, and it is a 20-year forecast of where we think we're going to be in terms of the need for natural resources, and it changes constantly. But if you go out and look at it, and it's on our website, it's very easily accessible, it will tell you where we think we're going to be given a lot of different circumstances, climate change, resource availability. And you'll see some pretty significant changes over, maybe over the last 6-7 years, probably, in terms of battery storage, of course, is starting to really become prevalent. Our purchases of solar and wind are becoming more prevalent because we understand the situation. We know that hydro isn't just always going to be a given. We know that Mother Nature is not always going to give us the snowpack we need. And so we are shifting our focus a little bit. I mean, we definitely want hydro to be our foundation because it is the cheapest resource. And that's one of the things that we are really proud of is the affordability of our power here in the West and with Idaho Power. But we understand the restrictions that Mother Nature puts us under sometimes as well. But please go ahead and take a look at that integrated resource plan as well.
Great. I'm assuming that makes assumptions about growth for the state, which has been very high, and you probably have high growth assumptions built into that already.
Glad you brought that up, Bryant. We anticipate, you saw that map where it says we're at about 601,000 customers. We're forecasting part of that integrated resource plan is that we're forecasting our growth to be up near 850,000 customers by 2040. So we're all sitting here scratching our heads sometimes wondering how in the world we'll keep up with the growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and Brian, I would piggyback off of what Russ was saying. That IRP is a very, very important thing for our business and how we operate, especially right now because we are seeing such an immense and quick change in technology. Like he said, the battery option is something that really I don't think was on most of our radar up until about 3 or 4 years ago, as far as even cost effectiveness, because that's the other part that I think would be important to come in and talk to, explain to everybody is, our rates are spread across all of our customers, and those are fixed costs that are built in there, versus, I think that a lot of times, people look at us as a normal operating business, whereas we're a public utility, and it is much different than a normal business in the regulations that we have, and even the justifications that we have to do for our pricing. Anytime we're looking for new resources, we're looking at the impact to our customers, because not only does it impact us as a business, but it impacts us personally, because we're all ratepayers. So it's very, very important to us when we are looking at that IRP that we're looking at what's current, what's available, obviously what's clean because it needs to go with our goal, and how we're going to carry that goal into the next 20 years and be able to meet it. So we joke sometimes in our office that this is like the kind of sexiest time to ever be in the electricity industry, because there's so much happening every year in how quick it's changing. So who knows, within the next 5 years, we might be looking at fusion or something crazy like that's coming on. But the other part too, and I didn't speak to this before, is we are fortunate too, and I don't think Russ hit this part. Being connected to the Northwest is very important because they peak opposite of what we do. So when you look at those purchases that we're doing through Washington and Oregon, typically speaking, last year was kind of an odd anomaly, but they're going to peak during the winter. So those market purchases you were talking about, will be able to take some of that resource that is peaking generation like solar during the summer from that gorge area and some of those large generation sites and purchase it over here. And a lot of times that's even cheaper than some of our secondary resources other than our dams. So it's a great balancing option that we have, but it is a balance. So we're looking for the best option for our ratepayers.
Well, interesting. Well, Russ and John, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it. Any other, Bill, did you have a question? I want to make sure
Yeah, I just had a question. I know this might be out there a little ways, but I was wondering if you guys see down the road, Idaho Power purchasing power from batteries stored in the garage, so to speak, kind of a vehicle to grid kind of scenario.
Yeah, that's a good one, Bill. We have constant conversations going on. I think a great case study for this, I believe it's Vermont. They've kind of been looking at some of those microgrid options and different things. where you're seeing, you know, incentives from the state, I believe it's Vermont, where they're incentivizing people to put power walls on. But that power purchasing it back, it's a great topic to discuss. I've talked to our engineer about it quite a bit, and I think the biggest thing would be is, you know, obviously the overall cost. It's always going to be, you know, what we can purchase it for, and then you know, really how we can balance it onto our system. So if we can, you know, I think there's a lot of options there, especially when you look at like neighborhoods where, you know, that might help bring down a certain feeder, the load on a certain feeder, if we can pull some of that battery off of there. So it's going to be ever changing, I think, with the technology. You know, you're kind of hitting it on the head where I was talking about every year it's changing. And so as this stuff continues to roll out, you know, and we'll see how it'll best work for our system and for our customers. But I wouldn't say that that's out of the realm of possibility. Oh, I just lost my light. There we go. Need to move a little bit. But yeah, I think that that's something that for sure, you know, our folks that do that IRP and our planning folks are definitely considering.
That's great news. That's great news. You guys are thinking ahead.
And John, great way to show the energy efficiency that Idaho Power is walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yeah, there's your occupancy sensors that we do incentivize businesses for. Also, Brian, I did include that link there about our proposed clean energy website. So, you know, I wanted to kick that back to Ethan just to get some clarification for him on that.
Great. Well, we'll share that with the larger group and as well. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Right, thank you so much, Caitlin. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it so much. Sorry, we went a little over time.
Yeah.
No worries. It was a great conversation and very informative and educational. So thanks for your time, John and Russ, and have a great Memorial Day weekend. And thank you everyone else for joining today. It was great to see you all.
Likewise. Thanks so much.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody.
Be safe.
Thank you.